Join me for another great makeover as I refinish this awesome highboy dresser. Just a really cool design. I got it for $50. I mean, I was lucky. This is in decent shape, but I just loved the drawer fronts, how solid they were, and that hardware. I knew this was special. I thought it was Thomasville, but then I found out American of Martinsville. I'm Shireen with Olive Street Designs, and I'm showing the process of furniture refinishing so you can learn too. Be sure to subscribe and follow for more. So let's dive in. First thing, of course, remove this hardware. It's solid. I'm not sure if I'm going to reuse it just because it's got these little rosettes and things in it. I think it makes it look a little dated, but we'll see when I get into it here. And then I need to give this a really good cleaning. I noticed that down into the crevices on these drawer fronts and things just had a lot of dust and stuff packed in there. So good scrubbing, some crutter degreaser, and then I'm gonna start sanding with 120 grit sandpaper. So I'm sanding, the leaf blowers are going, and now the garbage truck shows up. They must know I'm trying to make a video. Anyway, I hope that's not too distracting to hear all the leaf blowers, but here we go. We're gonna keep sanding and keep sanding. And all of a sudden, I've sanded the entire top off because it was water damaged. So now I'm just moving on to the rest of the piece, and I'm gonna scuff sand everything else. I don't see any water damage on the rest, so it's usually just the top. People tend to take water to bed and set it on top, and it really destroys that finish. So I'm taking out the drawers now. I always number them. Vintage furniture drawers really wanna go back into their original spot. So once I get all those out, now I can sand the rest of the frame. And then off of this dolly, and oh my goodness, I almost dropped it. This is so heavy. This one small dresser weighs as much as any long dresser I've worked on. Okay, I finally got it laid down. I put it on the dolly so I can move it around because it's so heavy. And I'm using my carbide scraper, and it does pose a little challenge because it wants to roll around, but once I got the finish scraped off, I could go ahead and sand. And I sanded off some of the veneer. I didn't sand it through, it just popped off. My sander must have grabbed the edge there and popped it off. And it also did the same thing on the other side. It didn't come all the way off, but it did come apart. So wood glue, some clamps. It'll be right as rain in just a few hours. So now I'm gonna scuff sand the drawers, and I've got the just traditional sandpaper on just to do all the flat areas. Switch into a pad, and now I'll do all the curved areas and the edges. So these rosettes that I was talking about made imprints into the wood. I'm gonna use some wood pate. It's my favorite wood filler right now. This is from Farmhouse. It's so thick and creamy, I just love it. Anyway, I'm filling in all those areas and then some of these details that are gonna show up once painted, so I wanna make sure I get them all filled in. But the rosettes had to go. And while I have this upside down, I'm gonna put some feet on it. It didn't have any feet, and I like to make sure that that wood is not gonna actually touch the floor. It will help keep this from getting damaged in the future when people do things like clean their carpets. Okay, so I scuff sanded the rest of the drawers, and I'm taking off the clamps and everything there that I had for that veneer. Get the rest of that sanded, give it a good cleaning. Just getting all the dust and everything off because I'm going in with some stain. This is dark walnut. Salmon stain, my favorite. This is a water-based stain, super pigmented. And it keeps moving around, and every time I move it moves around, and oh my God, I poured stain inside the dresser. God damn it. Okay, I had to block that out because words came flying out of my mouth. I'm so mad. Anyway, I got all that cleaned up and continue staining. I love this color. It's one of my favorites. Dark oak and dark walnut are my favorite colors. I put a little bit in my top coat. So after the stain dried, I top coated. I did several coats of top coat. And once that dried, of course, this is taking all day, the magic of editing. But several hours later, I can go in and tape everything off because I'm gonna get ready to paint. And now back on this dolly. This is extra tall, so I have to really hoist this thing up. This dresser is like carved from a tree. It is solid. And I mean, this is me struggling, but I got it on there. It'll probably be the last time I have to take it on and off of this, thank goodness, because this is a beast. sometimes they're just, I mean, I love dressers that are heavy. I just love it, but it was a lot. Okay, time to get this all cleaned up and back together. I decided to weigh a drawer. This drawer weighed 19.2 pounds. For a drawer. It was so heavy. Again, like a block of wood. Okay, long screws. I use those as temporary handles. Everything is so solid and so heavy that these drawers move slowly in and out. So they're not on rails, so I want to make sure that I can move them in and out now that I don't have any hardware. So I did put those in there as temporary handles. Time to set up the tent. I'm going to move this in and get ready for the transformation. It's prime time. Of course, this is my favorite Sticks primer. It is tinted gray, and I tint my primer because I like the coverage better than just using plain white. I even use tinted primer under white, so I always use tinted primer. And I noticed that after I sprayed the primer, it just wasn't getting down into that grain. So I went in with this little roller and just put in a thick layer of primer. And with the roller, I really can kind of, just kind of squish it into the grain. It acts as a little bit of a filler. But while I was at it, because these drawers are so thick, I usually use a little foam brush, but I decided to use the foam roller. Why not? This was much more efficient than the little foam brush that I normally use. So for big drawers, that's going to be my new thing, is that little roller. Once everything was dry, time for a good scuff sand because I want this to be a buttery smooth finish. And just this little bit of sanding makes all the difference. So I'm just using a sanding sponge to do this with. It's probably a 400 grit. And time for some color. I mixed a custom color, and this is going to be like a dark olive. I don't know why. Sometimes when I look at furniture, I go, "Yep, I know exactly what color you're going to be." And this was the case with this one. I looked at it and I thought, "You're going to be dark olive with a stained base." So I can see the seams of where they, put these wood pieces together and that inset, and I just don't like that I can see the seams, so I go in with that wood filler. If you take a damp cloth, you can just wipe it off. You don't have to wait for it to dry and sand it. Just wipe it off, clean it up. Brilliant. And because I paint with the drawers in, because I want the inside of my dresser to be immaculate, I also need to touch up the edges. So I'm using that same little roller, which is the cutest 2-inch roller, anyway, with the paint color, and now I am touching up the edges of the drawers. So I pull them all out. I will allow them to dry before I push them in, and then do a second coat of paint. And then after that, top coat, sand in between. I did several layers of top coat. These are my little helpers today, Henry and Hudson. They're in the garage to watch Mom put hardware back on the dresser. And my favorite little cordless screwdriver, getting my hardware on. I have the longest screws. I think these are 2 inches, and I put them in here and they don't even reach. I can't even attach hardware to that. This is such a big block of wood. So I have these cool bits. These are called Countersink bits, and I'm going to use this on the inside of the dresser. It just goes right into my drill, and I'm going to, you don't have to do it quickly. This is slow. Just doing enough to countersink the head of that screw down into the wood. And that way I have enough that protrudes on the other side that I can attach my hardware. A quick cleanup of all the dust from that, my little vacuum. And time to peel the tape to reveal that lovely stain base. Add a little personal touch. I do these for those special pieces, and this one is special. I hope you like this new updated version of this dresser. I think this was the perfect combination of paint, gold knobs, just to add that little touch of modern, yet hanging on to a bit of the vintage elegance from yesteryear. I hope you like it. Be sure to follow for more.